Thank you, members, for helping me to recognize these outstanding leaders in our Korean American community and commending them for their outstanding service. Thank you.
Members, we will now move to announcements and adjournments in memory. We have one brief announcement. There will be a reception in the Willie Brown Conference Room right off the floor in honor of Gus Demas. That is happening after session, a reception for Gus Demas in the Willie Brown Conference Room after session. Requests to adjourn in memory. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. Members, I'd ask that you give your attention to those speaking in this solemn portion of the day. We're going to recognize Mr. Cooley for your adjournment in memory.
Colleagues, it is an honor today to rise as we adjourn in memory in honor of Glendon B. Craig, Glenn Craig. Glenn Craig died 2 weeks short of his 82nd birthday. He had a 44-year career in law enforcement, and he was on the Visalia Police Department. Starting in 1956, he went to work for the California Highway Patrol. Glenn Craig rose through the ranks of the Highway Patrol. He became the youngest deputy commissioner and then the youngest commissioner in California history when Jerry Brown appointed him commissioner of the CHP in 1975. And Glenn Craig served 8 years, a time of great innovation in the CHP. I had the privilege of working with him on a CHP staffing bill in the late 1980s. He then went on and was elected sheriff of Sacramento County. He served there 12 years. And again, a time of great distinction. Glenn Craig was recognized as a tremendous law enforcement professional and administrator, a very able administrator. He also worked for the Department of Justice between the time he left the CHP and went to Sacramento County. And he had a lifelong relationship with his wife, Dorothy, who he leaves behind, his son, Kevin Craig, his daughter, Deborah Rousseau. A number of us who you'll hear from today went to the service last week on what would have been his 82nd birthday, December 8th. Many of us in our lives, we get the pressure of competing events and competing schedules and how we, in our busy lives, kind of keep our relationships together. We heard a funny story at his funeral where it was recounted that in the busy life that Glenn Craig left, he normally kept his yard meticulous. It was the pride of him and his wife. And there was a time when he got busy with his work that he was not attending to the home fires in quite the way the neighbors were expecting it. And so his close relationship with his wife Dorothy was such that on a day that he was not taking care of the Craig household quite right, she went out front with the lawnmower and in her front lawn mowed the single word golfing. So that when Glenn Craig arrived home that day, he got a message from his wife what he needed to do to kind of keep his life in balance. So he was an outstanding administrator, much beloved, a path breaker that opened up a lot of opportunity and set a high example. I want to note, in this area in which we live, Glenn Craig became the head of the CHP in a time of sort of turbulence in California, and then was the sheriff in Sacramento County following the Rodney King disturbances of the state. So it was a tough time to enter into law enforcement, and yet he left behind community policing. He did a lot of very innovative things to connect our Sacramento County sheriff with the community in a time when law enforcement was under a microscope, and he is remembered as this great law enforcement leader. So I ask that we adjourn his memory today.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Mr. Cooper, you are recognized.
Good afternoon. Today I rise to adjourn in memory of dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Sheriff Glenn Craig. As Mr. Cooley said, Sheriff Craig was sheriff for 3 terms in Sacramento County, and during that time, I was a spokesman from 1996 to 1999, the first African-American ever to be a spokesman for the Sheriff's Department. Glenn was a friend and mentor, and one of the first things he told me as a spokesman was never lie to the media and never say no comment, and I still hold that true to this day. During the 1991 Good Guys hostage incident in South Sacramento County, the largest hostage incident ever in the country, he came on scene as a sheriff, and typically sheriffs don't respond to crime scenes like that. But the scene commander said, "Sheriff, I'm going to turn this over to you." And Glenn said, "No." He goes, "I'm here for the bad stuff when it goes bad, to take responsibility." And that was the kind of person Glenn was. He opened up community policing centers, was a great mentor for the community and minority officers in the Sheriff's Department. Just a tremendous, tremendous job, and I would not be here today if not for Glenn Craig. He was a strong civic leader and a trustworthy mentor and a devoted friend. He will be deeply missed. Thank you for the opportunity to adjourn in Glenn's memory today.
Mr. Lackey, you're recognized.
Yes, it's a great honor to rise in paying honor and tribute to the service of former CHP Commissioner Glenn Craig. As a result of his leadership, women have become valuable partners in the CHP. It was under his leadership that we included women in our ranks. He was also the youngest commissioner to rise to that prominent position. But on a very personal note, I'm very grateful for his leadership because as a result of the inclusion of women, the height standard was relaxed of 5'9", and so I was able to enjoy a 28-year career with the CHP. So thank you very much.
Mr. Gomez, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Mr. Speaker, members, today I adjourn in the memory of Marcelino Decumas. He was the loving father-in-law to Beth Decumas, a scheduler to Assemblymember David Chu, and grandfather to my scheduler, Aaron Decumas Kana. Marcelino was born on January 2nd, 1921, in the Philippines and died surrounded by his family on December 12th, 2014, just short of his 94th birthday. He was a World War II veteran and fought alongside other Filipino guerrillas, Americans, against the Japanese in the Philippines. Marcelino followed his father Simon's footsteps and pursued a career in public service, first working for a city treasurer's office and then becoming assistant treasurer before he retired in 1974. Marcelino immigrated to California and then immigrated to California in 1974. After immigrating, he worked for the San Francisco Recreation and Parks Department and retired after 10 years of civil service. Upon retiring, he moved to Sacramento to pursue his other interests. He encouraged his children to learn through formal education and instilled in them a strong work ethic. Like him, many of his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren have pursued careers in public service, in the medical field, education, government, military, or both. He will be remembered for his wonderful sense of humor, dry wit, easy smile, and his quick step. Marcelino leaves behind his 9 children and their families, 18 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. So I adjourn in memory of Marcelino Ducumas.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Mr. Chu, you are recognized.
Thank you. Members, I also join Assemblymember Gomez in adjourning in the memory of Marcelino Ducumas to honor a veteran, a civic leader, and a loving father-in-law to my great scheduler, Beth Ducumas. Marcelino's story is that of a true Californian. After serving our country both on the battlefield and in public service, he came to the great city of San Francisco and continued a life devoted to empowering others. His legacy will live on through the excellent work ethic and sense of civic duty that he has passed on to his children and his grandchildren. Members, I ask that we adjourn in the memory of Marcelino Ducumas.
Mr. Levine, you are recognized at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. It is with great sadness that I rise to adjourn in the memory of William Cordum, a Sonoma County environmental leader who helped create the California Coastal Commission. Bill Cordum died December 20th at his Petaluma home. He was 87. He had more than 6 decades of environmental activism. Some of his more prominent work includes helping pass Proposition 20 of 1972, a measure that established the California Coastal Commission. Bill was born on July 22nd, 1927, and grew up on a chicken ranch outside of Petaluma. He attended Petaluma High School, but left his senior year to serve in the Merchant Marines at the end of World War II. In 1953, he graduated from veterinary school at UC Davis. Following graduation, he was drafted in the Army Veterinary Corps. Later, he established a veterinary practice in Cotati. Bill was known as a soft-spoken but tenacious man. He was well-liked by all, including his political challengers. His love and awareness of the environment and the outdoors was instilled in him by his parents, his mother Vina and his father Max. When Bill was young, he often hiked and camped throughout Northern California with his family. And it was as a young boy that his father warned him that by the time Bill grew up, access to the outdoors might be lost to development. It was during the 60s that Bill began to more actively pursue his interest in environmental protection. Sam Shukut, the executive officer of the California Coastal Conservancy, said, Bill was one of the grand old men of California's environmental movement. His passion for protecting public access to the California coast has served as a personal motivation. It inspired my legislation, AB 288, which is now law and encourages more Californians to become active in protecting the coast. Bill received many honors for his efforts, but his most cherished was the naming of the Cordum Trail along the Sonoma coast. Bill is survived by his wife, Lucy, his daughter, Julie Groves, sons Frank Cordum and Sam Cordum, and 5 grandchildren. My thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones of Bill Cordum. I ask that we adjourn in his memory today.
Mr. Wood, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity, and members. Also want to thank Assemblymember Levine for your leadership on this. Bill was known to many as the father of the Sonoma County conservation movement. One of his biggest victories was the successful fight to stop the construction of a power plant at Bodega Head. That is now the Sonoma Coast State Beach, part of the marine sanctuary, also part of the UC Natural Reserve System. Soon after that, Bill was appointed to fill a vacancy on the Petaluma School Board, where he was eventually reelected. As a school board member, he was instrumental in the state's purchase of Salt Point Ranch, which became a California state park. He then went on to become elected to Sonoma County Supervisor in 1974. Other big accomplishments include advocacy for the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit project that's going on now. He founded Sonoma County Conservation Action. He founded Coastwalk California, advocating for public access to California's coastline. We can't really talk about the North Coast and the environmental movement without discussing Bill Cordum. My sincere thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones of Mr. Cordum. I'd like to leave you with a quote from Ralph Benson of the Sonoma Land Trust. Bill Cordum was a gracious, courteous man of principle. From his service on the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors through his long life, he was a champion of the earth. He loved the coast of California and the hills and our natural bounty, and no one did more to protect this heritage than Bill Cordum. At the Sonoma Land Trust, we are proud that Bill was a longtime member, former board member, conscience, and a wonderful friend. So I, too, ask that we adjourn in his memory today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Obernolte, you are recognized at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, it is with great sadness and a profound sense of grief that I rise today to ask that we adjourn in the memory of Sherry Haggerty Lawrence. Sherry served as the city clerk of the city of Big Bear Lake. She was married to Big Bear Lake city engineer David Lawrence. She was 8 months pregnant. Several weeks ago, while working in her office at the city, Sherry suddenly collapsed due to complications from her pregnancy. And unfortunately, although she was rushed to the hospital and underwent emergency surgery, neither she nor her newborn son Declan survived. She was only 35 years old. Sherry was renowned throughout my district as one of its most respected and beloved leaders. She had an impactful presence and touched many lives, especially those of us who knew her well, including me. Sherry was a distinguished alumna of the California State University, Fullerton, where she earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree in communication with an emphasis in public relations. She also received a Master of Arts degree from Chapman University in organizational leadership. Prior to being appointed city clerk, Sherry served as deputy city clerk and the city's director of intergovernmental and community relations. Sherry will be forever remembered for her contributions to the community of Big Bear Lake. She will be greatly missed by her family and friends. I myself will most miss her brilliant smile and her infectious laugh. I thank you for adjourning this session in her memory.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones Sawyer, you are recognized at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I rise in memory of my father, Fred Superstar Jones. Fred Jones of Washington, D.C., Maryland area, passed away peacefully in his sleep on Tuesday morning, December 22nd, 2014, after a long illness. Born in Georgia to Primus and Mary Jones, he spent his childhood in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He joined the United States Air Force at a young age and was honorably discharged. Fred was an entrepreneur at an early age, shining shoes before he was 8 years old. Eventually, he would own his own business, and he became a legend in the Washington, D.C. community in the southwest Washington, D.C. area as a master barber and hairstylist. He was best known by everyone as Fred Superstar Jones. Fred was so successful that he owned several barber and hairstyling shops. His famous customers included D.C. Mayor Marion Barry, Redskins running back Larry Brown, and several other members of the Washington Redskins. In fact, he never forgave the Los Angeles Raiders, for beating his beloved Redskins in the Super Bowl. He taught or had a hand in teaching many of the African-American barbers and hairstylists in the Washington, D.C. area. Fred even taught barbering in local institutions of incarceration and would bring in the homeless and give them free haircuts. In his spare time, he enjoys organizing trips all across the country for vacations, hair shows, and sporting events like the Super Bowl. His favorite NFL team, of course, was the Washington Redskins, whom he was an avid fan and followed the team religiously. He left to mourn his passing, his wife, Lula Jones. Fred was extremely proud of his 4 children: Reginald Byron Jones Sawyer Sr. of California, Renee Jones of Washington, D.C., Amy Jones of Maryland, and Dr. Fred Clifford Jones of West Virginia. The service was held at Paradise Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., and it was packed. Fred will be buried at Arlington National Cemetery. For Fred, my father, education was the most important thing. For someone who did not complete the 8th grade, for him, seeing his children go on and to college was extremely important. And that's why I've asked for everyone, in honor of my father, that if they believe in education like my father did, that you contact me about making donations to the California Legislative Black Caucus Scholarship Fund. My father never got a chance to see a lot of things. He had Alzheimer's. It's an insidious disease that keeps people from being able to understand or see what's going on around them. as far as we know, because they're inside that shell. And there was times where I thought he saw me, and there were times you just didn't know. He never got an opportunity to see his grandson graduate from Morehouse College. He never got an opportunity to see his granddaughter graduate with a master's in education from Hampton University. And unfortunately, he never got a chance to see his son being installed on this floor as the assembly member of the 59th Assembly District. I hope today, honoring my father, he sees his son honoring him on this floor today. I thank you.
Mr. Ridley Thomas, for what purpose, sir?
I simply rise to add on to the adjourn in memory of Frederick Jones. One knows of one by what one bears. And in Assemblyman Jones' soar, we can tell that he came from good stock, and he honors his father's memory well.
Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Members, the Speaker has asked that I remind you that there will be an interfaith prayer service tomorrow. That's the 13th of January at 8:30 a.m. at the Cathedral on K Street. That's an interfaith prayer service tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. at the Cathedral. Announcements. The session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, January 13th, check-in session. Wednesday, January 14th, check-in session. Thursday, January 15th, check-in session. Friday, January 16th, floor session at 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves, Ms. Waldron seconds that this House stands adjourned until Friday, January 16th at 9 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.